Part 1. The demand. The night my son asked me to pay his wife's $300,000 debt, something inside me cracked. Quietly, like an old porcelain cup placed too hard on the table. He didn't shout, he didn't plead. He simply said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Mom, you've got savings, and she's drowning in debt. You owe it to us to help. The word "owe" burned through me. I remember sitting on that old floral sofa, the same one my late husband and I had picked together 40 years ago. The lamplight fell soft on my wrinkled hands. I looked at them, those tired, veined hands that had stitched his clothes, cooked his meals, and raised the man standing in front of me now. Daniel, I said softly, I don't owe you a cent of my soul. His wife, Lily, stood beside him. Her perfume was sharp, her eyes sharper. She avoided my gaze, perhaps ashamed, or perhaps only pretending. I thought family helps family, Daniel said. The tone wasn't a request, it was a sentence. I wanted to ask him, what happened to the boy who used to run barefoot through the garden, who brought me wildflowers in a chipped mug? But all I could do was nod slowly and whisper, I'll think about it. He left that night with a cold kiss on my cheek and a door that shut a little too hard. When silence finally filled the house, I realized something even louder. I was alone and I was being used. Part 2. The quiet between heartbeats. That night I couldn't sleep. The rain tapped softly on the windows, like a polite reminder that the world goes on whether you can bear it or not. I thought of my late husband Richard. He used to say, people show their true nature when money enters the room. How right he was. My son wasn't a bad man, not in the way the world defines bad. He didn't steal or hurt people. But somewhere between wanting more and fearing less, he lost the kindness that once defined him. At dawn, I walked to the kitchen. The kettle hissed as I filled it, my hands trembling. I caught my reflection in the glass window, an old woman with tired eyes, still trying to hold a family together that no longer wanted her heart, just her bank balance. That was the morning I decided I wouldn't pay his wife's debt. But I also knew something else. I couldn't stay. Part 3. Packing the past. When I opened my old cedar chest, the scent of lavender and tang rose like a ghost. Inside were the fragments of my life photographs, wedding rings, a faded letter from Richard, and a small tin of coins we once saved for rainy days. It was pouring outside now. A fitting day to leave. I packed slowly as if each item I folded carried a heartbeat. My shawl, my rosary, the photograph of Daniel as a boy grinning with ice cream on his chin. I held that photo longer than anything else. You'll be okay, I whispered to the smiling boy who no longer existed. By noon my bag was ready. My home, our home, felt suddenly foreign. Every chair, every curtain, every tick of the old clock felt like it belonged to someone else's life. When I closed the door behind me I didn't cry. Not yet. Part 4. The bus ride. The bus smelled of wet wool and diesel. I sat near the window clutching my bag as the city blurred past. Gray buildings melting into raindrops. I didn't know where I was going. Only that I couldn't stay where I'd been. People came and went at each stop, a young mother with her baby. An old man reading a newspaper. A boy listening to music too loud. Life in motion while mine felt paused between heartbreak and freedom. At one point, I caught sight of my reflection in the window again. I smiled faintly. Look at you, I whispered. Running away at 73. But somewhere deep inside, it didn't feel like running. It felt like reclaiming. Part 5. The little town by the sea. By evening, I reached a small coastal town I hadn't seen in decades. Richard and I used to come here every summer. He'd fish by the pier while I'd paint the sunsets, pretending I knew what I was doing. I found a room to rent above a bakery. The air smelled of sugar and sea salt. The landlady, Mrs. Crane, was kind but curious. Visiting family, she asked. No, I said softly, just visiting myself. She smiled, not quite understanding, but offering a warm key anyway. That night, as the waves whispered against the shore, I sat by the window and finally let the tears come. They rolled quietly, without sobs. Tears of love lost, of motherhood misplaced. Of a heart that had given everything, and was now empty enough to start over. And somewhere beneath the ache, a strange peace began to bloom. Part 6. The letter I never sent. In the days that followed, I wrote letters to Daniel that I never mailed. Letters full of memories of the small moments he'd forgotten. His first steps. The way he once cried when he broke my favorite vase, and how I told him, "It's only glass, sweetheart." I wanted to remind him that life was once softer. But each letter ended the same way. You broke my heart, but I forgive you anyway. Forgiveness is a strange kind of freedom. It doesn't erase pain. It releases your hand from its grip. Mrs. Crane began bringing me tea in the mornings. I helped her bake bread. Part 7. The news. One afternoon, I walked to the post office. The young clerk handed me a letter addressed in familiar handwriting. It was from Lily. Dear Mrs. Whitman, Daniel has been frantic. He says you've disappeared. He's angry, but mostly scared. We didn't mean to push you away. Please, if you read this, call him. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. No tears this time. Only stillness. It took him losing me to realize I was gone. But I wasn't ready to return, not yet. Part 8. The stranger at the pier. A few days later, I met an old fisherman named Thomas. He noticed me sitting alone on the pier, sketching the sunset with a dull pencil. "You look like someone who's waiting for an answer," he said. I smiled faintly. "Aren't we all?" We began talking each evening. He'd tell me about his late wife, and I'd tell him about Richard, about Daniel, about debts that weren't measured in dollars but in heartbreak. He nodded, his weathered face soft with understanding. "One day," he said, "the sea will take all the hurt and leave only the truth." I didn't know what he meant then. But soon, I would. Part 9. Shadows at my door. Autumn came quickly to the little town by the sea. The air turned cool and sharp, and every morning the gulls cried above the waves like they were mourning something they could never hold. I had begun to find comfort in small things. Fresh bread, salt in the air, the steady sound of the ocean that never judged, never asked questions. Then one afternoon Mrs. Crane came up the narrow stairs with a puzzled look. "There's a young man downstairs," she said. "He says he's your son." My heart stopped. For a moment I felt every year of my age settle in my bones. "Daniel," I wanted to run to hide, but my legs carried me slowly down the steps. And there he was. His face was thinner, eyes rimmed red, his hair a mess like he'd slept little and thought too much. When he saw me, he froze. "Mom." The word sounded small, fragile. "Daniel," I said quietly. "What are you doing here?" He swallowed. "You disappeared, Lily. She's gone. She left, took the car, some money. I don't even know where to start." I looked at him, waiting for the apology that never quite formed. "You found me," I said. "But what do you want?" His lips trembled. "I just wanted to see you. I thought maybe you'd still what?" I asked softly. "Still fix everything." He looked away, ashamed. The silence stretched between us like a cracked bridge. Part 10. What remains of a son. We sat in the bakery's back room, the smell of bread wrapping around the heavy air between us. He began to speak in broken sentences. How Lily had taken loans without telling him. How he thought paying them off would prove his love. How he thought I could rescue him like I always did. "I was angry, Mom. I thought you owed us because you always helped before. I didn't see how cruel that sounded until you were gone." I listened quietly. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. "You thought money could buy peace," I said. "But peace doesn't live in the same house as greed." He nodded, tears shining. "I know. I've lost everything, except you. Please come home." I looked at my son, this man who once fit in my arms, and I felt something break, not from pain but from release. "Daniel, home isn't a place," I whispered. "It's the people who treat your heart gently. You didn't do that." He bowed his head like a punished child. "I don't know how to fix it." "Start by standing still," I said. "Stop running from your mistakes." Outside, the waves kept crashing against the pier, indifferent yet eternal. Part 11. A choice between two roads. That night, Daniel stayed in a small inn nearby. I lay awake listening to the wind scrape the window panes, thinking of all the years I had built my life around his happiness. Mothers do that, you know. We build our homes out of our children's laughter, and forget that someday they might outgrow the walls. The next morning I found a letter slipped under my door. "Mom, I'm going back to sell the house. It's too full of ghosts. I'll pay back the debts myself. I'll try to be someone you're proud of again. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'll earn it, Daniel." Tears blurred the words. For the first time, I realized this was the beginning of his own reckoning. Not because I lectured him but because I left. Sometimes walking away is the only way to make someone see the shape of your absence. I folded the letter and Part 12. The call. Weeks passed. The town prepared for winter, wrapping itself in the smell of wood smoke and salt. Then, one evening, the phone in the bakery rang. Mrs. Crane handed it to me, her eyes wide. "Someone asking for you." It was Daniel again, his voice trembling. "Mom, Lily came back. She says she's pregnant. I don't even know if." He stopped, choking on his words. I closed my eyes. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know, but I won't ask you to fix it. I'll handle it." "That's good," I said. "That's how men are made, not by what they get but by what they take responsibility for." He laughed weakly. "You sound like Dad." I smiled. He'd like to hear that. After we hung up, I sat for a long time staring at the horizon. The sea was dark and endless, yet somehow comforting. For the first time in years I wasn't afraid of what would come next. Part 13. Winter letters. Winter arrived with silver frost and quiet mornings. Daniel began writing me letters every week. Updates about work, about how he'd joined a small construction firm, about trying to rebuild. Each letter was humbler, softer. The edges of his anger had finally worn down. In one letter, he wrote, "I've been paying off Lily's debts, little by little. It'll take years, but I'm learning to live within what I have. I miss you, Mom, not for what you gave me but for who you are. That line stayed with me. Sometimes love has to be broken to be seen. I replied once, just one line, keep walking, Daniel. The road will teach you what I couldn't. Part 14. The return. Spring came softly, with blossoms on the cliffside and gulls nesting under the pier. One morning, I was sweeping the small room when I heard a knock. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there again. Older somehow, his face lined not with age but with humility. Mom, he said, I came to bring me something, and handed me a small envelope. Inside was a check for 300,000. It's not from me, he said quickly. I sold the house. The buyer offered more than I expected. I want you to have it. I owed you once in pride. Now I just want you to be free. I looked at the check, then at him. Money had brought us apart. But this time it didn't tempt me. It tested me. I tore the check in half. You don't pay love back with money, I said. You live differently. He broke down, sobbing like the boy he once was. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I took him in my arms. Then let's stop counting what we lost. Part 15. Grandma's unfiltered tears. Now I sit here by the same window, the sea still whispering outside, my hair silver against the light. Daniel visits every month. He helps Mrs. Crane with repairs, bakes bread with me on Sundays. Sometimes we sit in silence, and that silence says everything we once shouted. Lily never came back again, and perhaps that was for the best. Daniel learned that peace isn't bought, it's built, one humble act at a time. As for me, I learned that walking away doesn't mean giving up on love. It means loving yourself enough to let truth do its work. Sometimes justice isn't lied. Sometimes it's the quiet sound of your son finally saying, "Thank you, Mom," and meaning it with his whole heart. I close my eyes listening to the sea, and whisper prayer to the wind. Forgive us all, for the ways we hurt the ones who raised us. And as tears slip down my cheeks, soft salt like the waves outside, I realize they are no longer the tears of loss. They are Grandma's unfiltered tears of peace. Don't forget, like, share and subscribe.